Welcome to the HabitStack podcast, where we talk to fellow founders who are in the thick of things as they execute their plans to grow their business. Because stories about past successes are interesting, but hearing from people who are in the middle of the battle right now, that's invaluable. I'm Scott Ward, founder of HabitStack. I'm here today with Andrew Morgans, who is the CEO of Marknology, founder of ecompulse.ai, and the host of the Business Therapy Podcast. We have a lot to talk about. Andrew, I'm delighted to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me.
Scott, thanks for having me on. I love everything your podcast is about. So it's going to be a refreshing conversation.
So I have about 100 questions, but before the first one is just tell me a little bit about what you're thinking about, learning about, what you feel like is kind of like your intellectual edge these days. What are you working on?
Yeah. Well, that's a loaded question. Personally, 2025 was a tough year. Like actually, the agency turns 11. We're 11 now at this point. So I've been a decade at this. It's not my first year, but 2025 was just a down year. Like it definitely started out kind of upside down the first few months of the year and just was like, what do I have to do? What do I need to focus on? So it really took a lot of my focus this year to just get us profitable. We doing several million in revenue. That's not it. It's more just like rising costs, inflation, brands leaving, churn, different things like that, all contributing.
Andrew,
Uh,
was it your sense? Sorry to interrupt, but is it
no,
your sense there's like a local thing to Marknology, or is it a broader? Well, I mean, some of the things you just rattled off are clearly macro things, but were there some local things too, or do you think every agency is kind of well? Anyway, just
well, I
local or
think
broader?
if I was to take like 3 or 4 years and say, okay, does every agency in the last 3 or 4 years go through something like this? I think yes, in the last 3 or 4. Whether it was this year for somebody or last year for someone, I
Right.
can't say. You know what I mean? But I do feel like relatively we're kind of all going through the same thing. Maybe not at the same time, but tariffs, which have raised like I'm in the brand building marketplace space. So, we help brands on Amazon, TikTok, Walmart, that kind of thing. Tariffs had a huge impact on that. Inflation, the government layoffs, to name a couple, and on top of just like that, I think what it creates is just a little bit of a hesitation at the very least. And so people are like less likely to start new things or jump into things or are leaning up. Can't really put my finger on one thing that drove it other than my business got more complicated even with success. And that's where I really needed I got like a fractional CFO slash
Mhm.
coach in like March, and that really, really helped me turn things around this year.
Let's talk a little bit about that because I talk to other people too who are maybe they're kind of undecided a little bit. Hey, we have a bookkeeper, but like at what point do you bring in a heavy hitter fractional CFO type person? What were some of the things that um what was the reason for doing that in the first place? And then what are the reasons you keep doing it? Because sometimes those aren't the same.
Okay, so I had someone explain this to me recently that a CPA looks behind, looks in the past. A bookkeeper is in the present day to day, and like a finance or a fractional CFO, there's a lot of names for that role, looks forward.
Mm.
Okay. And so if you're looking for your bookkeeper to look forward or your CPA to look forward or any of those things, you're gonna be hard nosed to find that from them. So what happened in my business was I have a warehouse in 3PL that we like, we're paying a lot of postage supplies, and a lot of it is billed like the following month or even the month after
Right.
you collect. Whereas an
Wait,
agent,
just a second. I like to understand these things. So
yeah,
you do that on behalf of clients, or that's part of what you offer? There's the 3PL thing.
yeah, so that
Oh,
actually
okay.
yeah, so that started in 2020. I've been doing the agency for like 11 years. So I'm also did things a little bit in reverse, whereas a lot of like agency owners worked at another agency and then split off on their own or built a brand on Amazon or TikTok or Shopify and then want to start doing it for others. I started out in services like 15 years ago. Just I was an e-commerce manager, went to school, got out of it, started working for, some stores, retail saw what was happening in the space and jumped into the services side and didn't start building my own brands until much later. So I actually have about 4 or 5 brands on top of the ones we manage that are ours as a team. We manage them, we're growing them, we're building them, or have acquired.
Oh, I see. What are those brands?
So, there's Parch, it's a non-alcoholic Paloma. There's, Waggity, it's a pet supplement. We have, Skin Fuel, which is like a tattoo aftercare product. So that's 3, like, it's a variety of
Okay, that gives
brands.
an idea.
Some of them have fallen in our lap. Some of them, I would partnered with someone and they had a brand and we had a brand, so we started sharing that. Just a variety of reasons, but it was later in the game for me than a lot of people that start with that. So in
Mhm.
the last 4 or 5 years, I've been building our own brands. The warehouse is a huge part of success for any e-commerce business, whether it's their own 3PL or they just have a good partner, or they really need to know their numbers. Whether you're kitting items together, you're understanding your postage, your packaging costs, like it's a huge profit center or loss center.
Right.
Okay. So just knowing that over the last 15 years, as I've been like, okay, is my plan to build my own brands and use my agency as kind of like a construction company for my brands.
Right.
Um, it was like, I
Can I ask
gotta.
a stupid question? Can I ask a stupid question? So
A
I
stupid
thought,
question.
what about it's like I thought you just like give it all Amazon. You just give it all to Amazon and they do the warehousing and stuff. Why is there a separate 3PL? Because this, e-commerce is not my main thing.
So they can, if you're only Amazon agnostic, I guess,
Oh, I
um,
see. Right.
and you have a product that can be shipped into FBA,
What's
like let's say an expensive item that's small and not like hazardous. Okay, that's a good item for FBA because it
what is
might be
that acronym? Sorry, what is that acronym?
fulfillment by Amazon.
Oh,
That's where you send it to them and they handle everything,
okay.
right? There's so many other reasons why you might need another 3PL. One would be, are the items coming straight from your manufacturer and ready to go into Amazon? Are they like kitted correctly or packaged correctly or
Uh,
labeled
okay.
correctly?
You're
What
selling through your own website or something. You're selling through your
Yeah,
own.
you sell it through your own website, you're selling through Walmart, you're selling through TikTok Shop, or let's say you're selling some B2B retail, or let's say most savvy Amazon sellers have like products in FBA or in Amazon's ecosystem, and then they have their own listing offering it for sale and shipping also in case though something happens at that Amazon warehouse, it runs out of stock, a fire, a pandemic happens, or whatever. It's called FBM. So you have like self-fulfilled by you and then fulfilled by Amazon. So you're
Got
kind of like a contingency plan, so to speak.
it. Interesting.
So any brand might start on Amazon, but as soon as they've kind of conquered that or feel stable, they're going to try to go into Walmart or Shopify or
Sure.
TikTok.
Sure.
So
Okay. Okay,
that
so then we were on like a rabbit trail after rabbit trail. If we could roll it back, what were we talking about before I
So I'm
started?
like very vertically integrated, if that makes sense, right? So from building a brand to warehousing it to being able to like build
Yeah,
the
right.
packaging and all of that. Well, that bills in arrears. So you like, you run postage for a brand. We have about 14 clients in our warehouse for context. So not massive, but a decent operation. They're running postage. The next month, maybe bill by the 7th or 10th, and then maybe they take 15, 30 days to pay. You've got 2 months worth. Some brands are doing 50, $60,000 in postage a month. It's a lot of cash flow, right? The other issue, so you ask why you bring in somebody, right? So I've had this agency that's like you build and you start work, like, a month at a time or so is pretty, recurring revenue is pretty traditional for an agency. But then I've got this other element of this warehousing where it's billed like after the fact. And then we also were fortunate enough 21, 22, 23 to have a Fortune 5 brand.
Mhm.
I'd put it that way. I won't say who it is, but one of the biggest food companies in the world and their brands, well, they were net 120. So getting these big checks, but
Right.
like, every 4 months or so. So you have this warehousing like play, you have the regular agency, and the regular agency life has been going through a lot of tumultuous time. I think 23, 24, 25. We had the big peak from COVID and then market saturation from everyone jumping in the game and lowering prices and international competition and a whole number of things. So a little bit of agency conflict, a little bit of like a huge client that we didn't have that started changing things for us. And then this warehouse play with cash flow. And I was just in over my head from what I generally had led the business for years as far as like where we're going, what our plans are and finances. But I was in over my head and couldn't exactly figure out where the leaks were happening or what we needed to focus on.
Right. It reminds me of I was talking to was on a table of entrepreneurs at one point, and one of them was just talking on and on about how they were spending so much time perfecting their forecasting. And me, it was a moment I kind of put my foot in it because I was trying to figure out, because I'm most familiar with services and SaaS. And I was like, why are they spending so much time? And then, pointing out, well, they're shipping physical products. I was like, oh, right. That's a business model too, right? And that is, that's a big deal. That's a big deal when you're shipping
Yeah,
stuff.
so you don't want to sit on expired product,
Yeah.
you don't want to, and that's where people can really get hung up on the forecasting side. Even in the agency side, you expect normal amount of churn, or you're expecting one thing, and clients, pull the rug out from under you or bring it in house, or who's the first to go when things get tough? It's usually the outside agency, for the most part, unless you can super validate why you're there and what they need you for. So that was really the reasoning for the finance, like, CFO, and he was recommended to me by my bookkeeper. So they had already had a relationship. So that was like really smooth. And I will say, like, pat on the back in a stressful year, pat on the back to myself for, even though we were losing money to an extent, um, spent money to learn, to
Right.
help myself, and that was like, looking back, I'm just like, man, that was the smartest thing I did this year, was bringing him in to help. Because you can bring people in and they don't do anything. Like, I've tried hiring
All
salespeople, I've tried
experience
hiring,
that. Yeah.
right, and spending, and it goes nowhere. This was money well spent for sure.
Cool. Well, that's good food for thought for people who are kind of thinking through, like, would it make sense? Because it
A
is
little bit
just,
more. Sorry, just, to cut you off, but, like, besides the finance play, I think the other thing I've really been interested in and studying is, one was just getting my mindset right for this tough year, like being like, instead of being like, I don't deserve this, or why is this so hard, or why is this happening to me? Instead being like, it's time to get my habits right, so to speak, and focus, get really dialed in and focus, which can be hard.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing has been the AI and automation, and really building something that's made some of my work fun again, where I'm doing more strategic things than just like manual report building and clicking and things like that. I've spent a lot of this year building kind of like a duplication, a brain of myself, of a repertoire of all my podcasts and all my emails and my writing styles, and
Mhm.
that. So AI has been kind of the bright light as well, this year.
So is that Ecom Pulse that you're talking about, or is that something
That's
else?
part of it. That's part of it.
Okay.
So
What is? Tell us about Ecom. Told us a little bit about Marknology, so yeah, tell us a little bit about Ecom Pulse.
Ecom Pulse is this idea of, I work with so many brands that have all different channels they're working with, and there isn't really anything out there that's truly aggregating TikTok Shop, Walmart, Amazon, Shopify, bringing in profitability. That's like the number one tool that we need whenever we're working with a brand. It's really looking at COGS and returns and ad costs and all of that, and pulling it into one spot where any brand owner or brand manager can say, okay, I'm making 10 points on Walmart and 15 points on Amazon, and 7 points on TikTok Shop, and, like, the aggregate of them. And then also not just reporting on those in a holistic view of e-commerce, but then also um, giving strategic advice based on those KPIs that come in. Like, let's say return rates 12%. Well, you might want to check XXX, for example. High return rate generally could mean product defect. It could mean misleading content, or like a sizing issue, or like, it's a just like if you plugged in your computer to the car, it's going to say, hey, these things are
Yeah.
going,
Cool.
you should fix. So that's kind of the premise behind it. And along the way of building that, um, this AI push to replicate myself, create a marketing, be able to market faster, or go to market faster with topics and ideas in the podcast and things like that. AI has just been a big part of that.
Mm-hmm. You said something about how these different platforms, you're making different points of different platforms. Out of curiosity, is it you generally do people who who big on e-commerce on all these platforms, is there one that's better? Well, not better, but there's like one that you get more points on, and more of one is volume, and you kind of have, what are the typical the characteristics of these different platforms?
So it's like, let's say you're selling on Etsy, eBay, and Amazon,
Yeah.
just for context. You're gonna make more margin on Etsy and eBay. theoretically. They don't have expensive ads. They're not doing fulfillment services like on Amazon.
Right.
You're going to take more money home, but you're also like there's like a max of how much sales you're going to get from there. You're going to get
Right.
sales here and there on eBay or Etsy, in my opinion. Amazon is something that's scalable, and has like, millions and millions and millions of
Yeah.
Americans on there spending money every day. So
Yeah.
it's like a volume game over a margin game on Amazon generally.
Yeah.
Although I have plenty of brands making 20-30% margins after everything's said and done, like after all fees and expenses. So it kind of depends on that. A lot of people are using their website to run like Facebook ads, let's say Meta ads, but their return on ad spend is two, or like, it's not sustainable to scale and grow a business. But they'll do that while they're also on Amazon, while also on Walmart, knowing that awareness like trickles down to the other, like they're going to go look you up on Amazon or look you up on eBay or Walmart or whatever the case is. So strategy is just changing a lot. I think in 2025 and beyond, where we're looking more holistically, and it's more about blended returns than it is like, I'm just on this one, I'm just on this one. Well, you can't compare them to each other. It's like, Amazon is probably the best converting channel out there as far as like a conversion rate, like a person deciding to buy, between the reviews, the trust that they have.
Yeah.
You have products all day on Amazon that are at 25% conversion rate, whereas a website might be sub 3%.
Yeah.
Uh, so you're really like, you're like making more on the website, but like horrible conversion rate in comparison to Amazon. So it's really, if you can start thinking about everything as a whole and being able to track it effectively and really know your numbers, that's a much better way to go than it is to just be like, well, I'm not selling on my website anymore because my conversion rate's too low, or I'm not
Yeah.
selling on Amazon because the margin's not there.
I mean, my understanding is that attribution generally is getting harder and harder, privacy things, whatever. But also, it sounds like there's some things that you're doing that are they're intentionally, or they're kind of, you're never going to be trackable. They never were trackable. If you run a Facebook ads, then they go and order on Amazon. You're not going to know how to connect those dots exactly. So how do you do it then?
I
Like,
love
how
this.
do you
I
know
love this
whether or not the
question.
Facebook ads
I
are
love this
working?
question because I know there's haters out there on this answer. So look, if you're doing it for your own brand and you're not doing it as a service for someone else, you get to play the game differently. Okay. So if it's for your own brand, you're tracking all the numbers across all sides. You're able, what you're spending versus what's coming in. And even if you can't draw a straight line, you're like, I spent, these sales came from somewhere. Where are they coming from? And you can kind of piece that together. If you are, let's say, just a TikTok shop agency being hired by a brand, you're not going to get credit for what happens on Amazon from a halo effect. You're not going to get credit what happens on their website
Right.
from your TikTok. You're only going to get the TikTok shop. And so service providers, Facebook ad guys in the early days, now everybody is like, they have to justify their work to the brand hiring them. So they need that attribution. They care about that attribution. If you're the owner, there's so many other things you can do to see like what's turning the dial, so to speak. Like, is my organic ranking climbing on Amazon? Where like for every keyword search, like, are the keyword rankings going up? So it's like almost an investment into brand, and an investment into, you can run on TikTok and then all of a sudden you start seeing branded searches on Amazon. Let's say you're a new brand that no one knows about. The only reason you're now getting searched by brand on Amazon is because someone's finding you on TikTok.
Right. So there's some clues. There's some clues.
There's
You
some
ever just
clues.
like, ever like, you know what? Just for 2 weeks or for 1 week, we're going to shut off all the ads and just confirm that sales slow down. Does that
Yeah,
happen?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So if you're a pro, you're tracking keyword ranking, you're tracking, these different little metrics. And if you're putting everything on its own island, some of those things won't be sustainable. But if you're thinking about things as a whole picture, and it's like, I'm going to put $500 toward Google ads and $1,000 toward Meta, maybe 5,000 on Amazon because that's our highest converting, but all those little things all matter. Like Amazon rewards you for sending outside traffic. Well, if you know that, it's not just about the black and white. It's like kind of in that gray area,
Right.
and the real brand builders know that. They're not having to justify to the person that's hiring them, and they're just doing it because they know it's the right thing to do. Like anybody out there that's, doing $100 million a year as an e-commerce brand, putting out content on YouTube, you're going to see them talking about that, where it's like, we're doing this, even though you're looking at, I'm spending $1 to make $1 because of this huge impact we have over here. I was watching a TikTok shop guy the other day, very, very successful. It's like that seaweed type of supplement, I think it's
Okay,
something like
yeah.
seaweed. And they're using TikTok. It's a one-to-one return, which most people would say, like, okay, that's not great. They're using it to drive their retail traffic. Like they're
Mm,
in stores and they're using it to drive retail traffic in those areas. And when you're operating like that, you're just a level above. Like, I need to be able to drive a straight attribution link,
right,
like think
right.
about a billboard. A billboard never had to drive attribution. Why all of a sudden e-commerce gave us that at the beginning, but now it's coming back to where like we can't do that.
Right.
And no one was saying like, when everyone came into their store, like, did you see me on the billboard? Like, I got to be able to attribute that, And so, um, attribution is nice, but it's almost like it can be a curse too if you're just like so committed to it that you can't think outside the box and like test other things.
Yeah, I mean, in one way, if that guy who you were listening to is basically it's free because the billboard also doesn't pay for itself. It doesn't break
Yeah.
even. So break even is pretty good if you can swing it. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So it's like some, let's say, a networking event might be great for, this is just a comparison, a networking event might be great for brand awareness, people knowing who you are and getting like handshakes and getting to meet the most amount of people. Like, as far as like maybe you meet like 10 or 15 new people at a networking event, that'd be a good event. But most of the times it's a one-on-one or a group of 1 to 3 where you actually get a relationship made over dinner or over drinks or something like that, where you get to know each other.
Yeah,
Maybe you can actually make a deal happen. A deal very rarely happens like live in the event, right? It's like
yeah,
what happened after. So think of like TikTok maybe as being that like networking event where you're just like, people are seeing your name and you're out there, you're shaking hands, you're meeting 10, 15 people. And in Amazon, for example, in this example, would be where you're getting that one-on-one and you're really getting a chance to sell them or have some business together. So you got to
right.
think about which channels are like that overall. I'm paying for that overall awareness, and which ones are for like getting you to say yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's good analogy. Okay, so you started Marknology like um, Marknology 11 years ago. Just you, I'm assuming,
It
and
it
then
was it was just me at the time, and then my sisters came and joined me year like 3. Think about it, at this time, like, Amazon was so early. It was new, like no one really knew what was
yeah,
going on. I mean, distributors still existed in the world. Like, distributors are almost gone now. So many people sell direct. Not all of them, but thousands have gone by the wayside. If you're not really a strong distributor, you're gone. E-commerce was newer at the time. Amazon just started selling non-books. They sold books like primarily first, and
yeah,
some different things like that. So if you just 2-day shipping, same day shipping, these things didn't exist. And so no one's going to school for what I did. But I was getting some crazy results like off of Upwork and Elance and some of these sites, as well as my day job. And I was just like, sis, like, I need some help. Like, I,
right.
I, I don't even know how to hire anyone or what I would do to get anyone in here. But I'm overwhelmed with work. And um, my older sister had just finished her master's in engineering. She was like working in Florida. My younger sister has equestrian degrees, and they were the first two that supported me. So we built a lot of this together.
They're still with you?
They're still with me, yes.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so there was the three of you. I mean, LinkedIn, I don't know if it's right. It says 24 is the count right now for our employees.
We're probably at like 28, I think.
Okay, so 20. So you go through these. Can you just reflect quickly on the transitions you at different inflection points of size there, and what they required of you as a leader? Like what changes you needed to make in terms of how you operated.
Scott, I might be not. So I grew up in Africa till I was 16.
Oh,
My dad was a missionary, taught at schools. So I think
what
that
schools? What
education,
schools?
just Christian schools, like in Botswana and in Congo,
Okay.
DRC Congo.
Yeah.
So Christian curriculum schools, my parents speak fluent French. They were teaching like English, with curriculum. Uh, so I have a little bit of like, go somewhere no one else is and start something in my blood. But
Right.
besides that, it's not really business minded. It's more educational, I would say. There's a little bit of that in there, but I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur was when I really started doing this. I was like, I loved music. I was playing music full time. I went to school for computer science because I was good at computers. And I was like, if I don't make it in music, and I get out, I want to at least get a job. I don't want to have one of those communication majors. No offense, anyone, but all my friends like had these cool degrees but couldn't get any jobs, and I'm like, if I
Might have
do it,
been in philosophy, so offense
eh,
taken.
there you go. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. You guys just taught me a lesson before I got there. So, um, I guess what I'm saying is like I have had to learn so many lessons to be here. Just because it's not the path I saw or the way, like it wasn't like an orchestrated plan, so to speak, to be an agency owner or an entrepreneur. It just kind of happened. I'm a tinker. I'm a guy that does nerds out on keyword ranking and attribution, and a lot of agency owners are just really sharp business guys that know how to make deals and put something together and see a trend or see a niche. I was like the operator that liked doing it, and it just kind of created it out of necessity or out of doing the work and fixing
Yeah.
problems. Um, so beginning was really, really hard, as far as like knowing how to scale or communicate or anything like that. But at least it was my sisters early on. And so they just sat kind of hovering over me, and I would just give them some work to do. We were like listing lots of product at bulk and writing product descriptions for brands that never had been online and things like that. I would say number 10 employees was like a really big, um, monumental number, I guess. We were at 10 for a couple of years. Like, my growth has really been, it's not like a lot of stories. It's been really slow and gradual. I'm bootstrapped, so I didn't have investors. It's always been income. Like, first of all, I started so early that in this space, it wasn't really a carved out niche. So people didn't know what to pay for what we did, didn't have the case studies, didn't have other people on YouTube promoting services, Amazon brand management, marketplace management. So as the industry has changed, like, it also greatly impacted our ability to grow
Right.
on who our customers were, who was looking for our help. At the beginning, it was just Amazon sellers, really like adventurous guys trying to get out of their 9 to 5, or girls like trying to get out of their 9 to 5 and like be able to be remote. Now it's full, like the biggest brands in the world are doing it.
Right.
But
So Andrew,
that's
let me ask, go back to something you said. So 10 is monumental. How so? Like what was that like?
It's just like, I think it's exponentially like communication. So like if I had to say like anything changed at all, is like my ability to communicate, like in every shape or form, from written to speaking to communicating with my team to communicating hard things to customers. Like, that's what lacked in me. Probably like just communication, communication, communication. And when you're scaling a team, so if you have one person and 10 clients, it's like, you have 3 people and 10 clients, you have 10 people and 10 clients. It just, as far as like your
Actually, yeah,
systems and
yeah.
process and everything has to be perfect. And I'm a creator. I'm a creative problem solver. I'm a builder. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a like super processed, super detailed person. I've had to become that to be successful. But my natural state is like, let's brainstorm and jam, and I'll come up with creative ideas on how to fix things, and like, let me tinker. Other people are documenting they're not talking to anyone, but they're documenting everything that they've done. And that just wasn't my natural disposition. So those things were things I had to work at like really hard to get to the next level.
Hmm. Hmm. One of the things that I reflect on a lot is about how setting clear goals is a big part of how a CEO needs to communicate. This is like a core part of the communication that they're responsible for. Um, does that resonate with you? And how do you use strategic goals well? How goal oriented are you, and what does that look like?
Super goal oriented. It's the habits, like, I have a saying, I call it running on habit. When you're like, you're past thinking logic, you're tired, whatever, you're just running on the habits that you built before that, and so it's almost
For
like
better or for worse?
for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Like, and in these cases, like running on habit, like in the best way.
Right.
Meaning like when you don't know what to do, it's like muscle memory, and you just get up and shoot the basket or whatever it is. Like, you just muscle memory because of the work you've done before to build those habits. So very goal oriented. Like right now, as the year closes out, I'm really recapping 2025, trying to make sense of everything that happened, and then like really set goals for 26. And I would say one of my even though I think I'm goal oriented, what I would say is one of the things that I would do differently if I was talking to my therapist or a business therapist or mentor or anything like that would be I started at such a low. I was coming out of a bad relationship when I started like my business. I poured myself into my work because my heart was broken.
Mm,
And it's a story a lot of people probably have for different reasons. But my ceiling for myself was so low that for like it was just like let's try to do this. Oh wow, I've accomplished that. Oh wow, I've accomplished that. Oh wow, I've accomplished that. Um, and could have just set them higher and maybe saved quite a bit of time just shooting higher. But also, if I want to see the silver lining in that is that, I set goals that were attainable. I do believe that that's important. Set them high, but set them where you can get momentum and get confidence. Like, when we're working with a new client, it's super important to find things that they can grab onto as like success metrics as we're going. And the same thing for anybody, running a mile or health goals or podcast, goals. Meaning I want to put out this much content, I want to put out this much volume. Um, it all comes down to like setting that goal and then shooting for it. And a lot of times I'm overachieving way beyond the goal I set, but without the goal there, as cliche as it sounds, um, where are you going? Where are you heading? And I've just seen so many entrepreneurs, if you're looking at a span of like 15 years of doing this, not in a year, but like across 15 years, so many people I respect, I've looked up to, I work alongside, have lost their way. Because either they had someone setting the goals for them and then that person was removed, or they accomplished the goals that they set out and then didn't set more, or some life events happened and changed the direction and then they didn't create new goals. Any number of reasons, but really that focus goal word you could use interchangeable. um and I think that's what's been, uh at least for me this year, it's been one of the hardest, but it's been one of the clearest years for me because early on I had a clear focus on what I needed to do to save my business and what I needed to focus on. And because of that, there's a level of joy, satisfaction, happiness that just comes with having a focus and having a goal versus not having one at all, even if things are good.
it's so gratifying. Yeah, such a basic human experience, but very gratifying to have an idea, set a goal, work on it for a long time, and be hard, and then achieve it. I don't know, it's just, like, something very fundamentally fulfilling about it, and actually, even if we don't have explicit goals, and when we're successful, that's kind of nice, but it's not as nice as if um, you went through the whole process, Success kind of organic success is great. I mean, nobody's gonna complain about success, but it's even better if it's, like, what you set out to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of the goals I like to set too are not just like I'm trying to reach 5 million in this year,
Yeah,
but it's like I want to speak at this event. And I don't know how it's gonna happen, but like it's a goal of mine to like be invited to be a speaker to speak
right.
there. And then getting that invite that you didn't buy, that you didn't pay off to like sponsor some event to be able to speak there and you get that invite. And like that feeling is just different than sometimes some of the monetary ones or some of the others, like a goal for us as a family was to retire my mom and we
Mhm.
did that.
Yeah.
And that's something that's like just way above any business goals. I guess it is a business goal, but it's not like a straightforward business goal. And so some of those little ones like speaking at this event or having international customers, maybe you don't start with international customers or speaking in abroad, or I became an Amazon advocate this year, which wasn't necessarily a goal, but I've been like doing thought leadership and content and stuff on Amazon for 15 years legitimately. And Amazon reached out this year. It's like we started this new program. We want to partner with you to be kind of an Amazon voice, not an Amazon employee, just like you're vetted to speak on our behalf. That felt like a big goal, even though there's no money tied to it.
That's
It's
cool.
like, yeah, just like a validating thing. So, um, even having those goals out there written somewhere, when they do happen, it now becomes like a validating or accomplishing thing versus if they weren't there and you just achieved them, you weren't even looking at them. And sometimes they come and go and you don't even appreciate them,
Mhm. Right.
so.
Yeah, yeah. So 2026, what are some of the things you're excited about? What are you're thinking this month about?
Well,
What is it?
well, I'm excited to start creating more content. I feel like in 2025, I was just like, bailing water out of the boat, so to speak, trying to fix things, versus being like visionary, like out in front, really thought leadership. And that's what I enjoy a lot more than micromanaging and fixing stuff like that. So I feel like we've got the business in a great direction again going into 26. And so now I'm thinking just forward. It's just a different mindset when you're thinking forward versus thinking like, how do I fix this problem? So I'm really thinking about, I feel like I have enough in the tank, so to speak, to create content again. It's gonna be really hard to force yourself to create content when you're just kind of running on fumes and just like trying to fix problems. Because content is not something that's generally like immediate. It's something that by doing it for a year or whatever, it compounds. So I'm excited for content again in 26 in a new way. Like I talked about the business therapy podcast. I'm excited for um let's see, I'm working on really tracking my like work life balance down to like details, like getting detailed with it. I've actually done a crazy thing. Okay, so just for 2 seconds, I created this AI brain for anyone listening. It's like 15 years of emails, podcasts, hundreds and hundreds of episodes of podcasts. So it can think like me. It has all my proposals I've sent in it. It has my like contracts. It has my like thinking in it. So I can it thinks like me. It's not just like an AI, if that makes sense. So I can talk to it, do a bunch of stuff. I use Claude for anyone that Anthropic, Claude to AI. Well, to do a year's recap, what I've done is I've had it go through month by month through my calendar. I put almost everything on my calendar as a person, just like even going to my mom's house for a family dinner or like a trip, it all goes on my calendar.
Yep.
And so I had the AI like grab all of my calendar dates. It's looking at my churn rate. It's looking at my conversion rate from meetings. It's looking at who I spent the most time with, who I spoke with the most. Were they internal meetings, external meetings? Um, what key partnerships did I make? And almost all of that's in your calendar if you're really like detailed like that. And I've also got an Airbnb business. I pulled some of that data in. I've got like everything in this master document. I mean, it's probably a couple hundred pages long looking at stuff. And it's helping me evaluate really where I spend my time.
Mm.
I know like there's exercises of doing that, but I'm kind of doing it with AI where it's really going through my actual year of being like, where did you travel? How many podcasts were you on? How many clients did you talk to? How many internal client meetings, external client meetings? And I'm trying to get real granular with, okay, how was my year this year, and what do I want it to look like in 26? If this is actual, what do I want it to look
Right.
like in 26?
Right.
So I'm still trying to define that, but I'm having fun um, getting the data that precise.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super cool. Um, you before I let you go, there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about on your podcast because you mentioned it, the business therapy podcast. You used to do the
Startup hustle.
startup hustle. What's the difference between the two? Would you say?
Yeah. So Startup hustle was like love of my life, for the record. It wasn't something I thought about doing. Like it's one thing to be a podcast guest, it's another thing to be a host. And my mentor, I had a mentor. He's now sold his business and living on a farm. That's why I say had a mentor, because he's out having too much fun being Farmer Joe. But that's the goal, right? I mean, that's the goal. But we had been mentored together. It's a cool, crazy story. I'll save that. But we actually moved into a office together pre-pandemic in downtown Kansas City. And it was like me on the first floor. It's kind of this area we're trying to rehabilitate in the city. And so I was on the first floor. My mentor was on the third floor. And in the second floor, we got a video production partner that I know that runs like all of MLS's filming. So starting
Mhm.
11, they're like the first soccer focused production company. Well, so my buddy in floor 2, my mentor in floor 3, it was quite the party. And then the pandemic happened. Okay. And my mentor had already started the Startup Hustle podcast, but he had a vision for putting out a lot more content than he was. And the pandemic had just happened. So he called me up and he's like, "Hey, Drew, we have one." They were doing it like maybe 2 shows a week. And it's him and his partner. And they do what's the word I'm looking for? Tech startups, SaaS
Yeah.
development, that kind of thing. And I'm obviously in services, Amazon marketplaces. Well, he brought myself in and he brought in another lady that did like women focused businesses and nonprofits. So I'm doing kind of marketplaces, ecom. She's doing that. They're doing tech. In between us, we started kicking out 5 to 6 episodes a week on Start.
Wow.
Okay. So it was multiple hosts. We weren't doing it all at the same time, but I covered these topics. They covered these topics. They covered these topics. And my mentor is just a real genius with SEO and stuff. Well, we became top 20, I think top 15 in the world under business podcasts, putting out that level of content. We were just like absolutely crushing it.
Yeah.
And it became quickly like the bright spot of my week during the pandemic when we were all isolated and not traveling, and just having conversations with people that had been inspired at one time, even if they weren't on my show at the time, but there was a reason that they had built something, were solving a problem. And it was just very inspiring to get those stories out of people. And well, did that for 3.5 years without missing a beat. But then came the exit. My mentor's business sold for a large amount of money. And the podcast went with it. So it was kind of like it was a revenue driver for that business as well as mine and everything else, you know. And so when they sold it, the podcast went with it. The new owners wanted to keep it just tech, and so pulled out the e-commerce and nonprofit.
Oh, interesting.
And it was a sad day. I honestly wasn't expected. It just kind of happened, and then that's just the reality you're with, you know, and you just got to figure it out. So I took a break after that, because you know you're already there. You already have this podcast people are recognizing you for, and you're getting invited to things, and it's just like it's like you built a very successful brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then it's just gone. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of I haven't had the big exit. I've had a couple small exits. I haven't had that big exit where you like lose your business. You got to figure out who you are and what you're going to do next. But that was maybe my closest attempt to that. And so I had to just figure out, okay, what if I'm going to do it myself? Like, what do I want to do? I don't believe in just kind of like starting something without being like, you know, behind it and consistent. So 2026 is the future for me with the business therapy podcast. I'm going to have some fun with it, do it my way, just a little bit different. I joined some older guys. My mentors are like kind of older guys. And so we're going to have a little bit of fun, do it a little bit more 2025, 2026-esque. So that's a long answer. But that's how I've been a part of a podcast that sold. You know, it was essentially the marketing, a massive marketing engine for the business. So
for you too, like it worked pretty well in terms of
yeah,
everybody involved keeps getting business.
yeah,
Out of
even from a level of not direct clients, but from a level of brand awareness, from a level of like people knowing who you are, credibility. And I was able to reach out to people that if I had reached out normally, we'd have to talk about like, is there some reason we're talking, like sales or like you trying to close me or use a service? And with the podcast, just because of the breadth and reach that it had, I was able to talk to people way above my pay grade, so to speak,
Right.
because I offered them that exposure. And that was opened a lot of like things for me in my brain in regards to like how that can really work for you in a business, even if it's not that direct attribution like we're talking about.
Yeah, right. That nice. You brought it back around to that previous topic there. Yeah. You know what, man? It feels like we could go for another hour, but probably shouldn't. Probably should stay within the constraints that we set out for ourselves. So I appreciate you coming on. We covered a lot of ground, and I'm excited about what you're up to. I'm going to go subscribe to the Business Therapy podcast, as should everybody else who's listening. And I'll be excited to kind of journey along and follow along with what you're up to with Marknology and also Ecom Pulse.
Thank you, Scott. Once I get up and running full speed, I'll have to have you on the show, and we can kind of
man.
in 2026 where I'm at now that we're in the year. And I'd love to get the story out of you too, and what you're focused on, what you're building. So I'll see you soon.
Yeah, that sounds great. But just to clarify, like we can go to Spotify or wherever and subscribe now, right? It's going.
Yep.
Okay,
I'm on
cool.
YouTube specifically.
Okay.
If you look up Marknology, you'll see my stuff there on YouTube as well. Trying to do a little bit of that video format instead of just audio format. So
awesome.
Thanks,
Andrew,
everybody.
Pleasure. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Founders, if you're struggling to manage goals and execution with your team, HabitStack can help with that. I'm Scott Ward. Thank you for joining me on the HabitStack podcast.